Tonight on News 5 Live, an inflammatory interview by Doug Singh triggers his resignation from the SSB, BTL, and the Elections and Boundaries. UDP Chairman Michael Perifit says Singh's resignation was the right decision, while a former journalist and attorney says there is nothing illegal about the recording. Poultry sales plummet by 50%. Bishop Wright passes away at 74. No new cases of COVID-19 reported, but stricter measures to be imposed on Friday. The Attorney General says no double dipping for doctors, and social distancing remains an issue. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast. Good evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Wednesday, April 15th. I am Marlene Cuellar. The recording of an interview between reporter Aaron Humes of Belize Breaking News and Doug Singh, formerly of the Social Security Board, has triggered a passionate debate about public accountability, the right of the public to know, and journalism ethics. Since its release, the audio recording has unleashed a storm on social media because as a senior public official, Singh made derogatory and repulsive statements about which constituents are to benefit from the COVID-19 unemployment relief program. Even though the Social Security Board is only the disbursing agency, Singh makes judgmental comments about women whom he said are, quote, Maria's baby daddies, unquote, referring to those men behind bars. That interview, we're told, was shared by Humes with his colleagues and then leaked. Notably, there was no mention of off-the-record comments during the course of the 19-minute interview. For us, the question is not who leaked the information, but what was said, and how is it that as a media house, we can report bravely on issues of national importance without breaking the trust of the public and facing repercussions such as loss of access to valuable public information.
When I heard the content of the interview at the very start, I will not tell you any lie. My jaw dropped. I wasn't even sure that I was hearing right. I repeated this interview several times to be sure. I know Mr. Singh's voice very good. I know how he likes to talk. I mean, I never realized he uses so much curse words. Well, obviously, he has never spoken to me like that. But let's look at the content of what he said. The reason Mr. Humes was entitled to call him and ask him for a comment is that he is ultimately the person in charge of dispersing the money. And the disrespect that was even greater was that Mr. Singh forgot that he's talking to a poor black man from the south side, because although Aaron has a job, he's not the wealthiest person. And Aaron then uses his own family as an example. And the insult was very clear, because it's people like his mother and father that the chairman or the ex-chairman low-rated and berated. And so that tells you that for me, the accountability is not only saying how money is being spent, but even your character, how you hold that office, how you represent that office, how you view people that you're to serve, because he's there to serve. And that's a lie that he's saying that we're getting something for free, and then he began cursing. We're not getting anything for free. Somebody pays it. Even the poor person who is not employed in the formal system, every time they go buy something, even if it's just ramen, or they go buy some product that they pay GST on, they're contributing to the taxes. And those are the taxes that keeps Mr. Singh very comfortably paid in any post or position he gets that is politically appointed. So he needs to be accountable to us. He lives off the public purse, so you answer to the public. That's my message to him, and congratulations to him on his resignation. He did the right thing.
UDP Chairman Michael Parafit has not had a chance to speak with former SSB Chairman Doug Singh. However, in an interview with News 5 this afternoon, he said that Singh's prompt resignation was the right decision in light of the unfortunate remarks. The focus, says Parafit, should remain on government's efforts to get the people of Belize through the COVID-19 crisis. According to Parafit, the vacancies left in the wake of Singh's departure will be filled in a timely manner as government's work must continue.
Doug made certain statements to a reporter. It was leaked. Based on that conversation becoming public, he decided, as I would imagine, I haven't spoken to him as I would imagine, that he didn't want to be a distraction. That's not where the focus needs to be at this point. The focus shouldn't be on Doug or his comment. The focus should be about fighting COVID-19 and having our people prepared to fight this disease, and also at the same time try to come out of it with some semblance of economic integrity. So he thought it was best that he removed himself from the process and from anything having to do with the government so that he could not be a topic of discussion.
The comments, nonetheless, came at the most inopportune and the most, sensitive time in terms of what a lot of people are grappling with in terms of the economic hardship Is there anything else perhaps that the party can do to try to save face in a manner of speaking, given what has transpired?
Well, the party at this stage is not going to use any energy to deal with that. He has resigned. He has decided to resign and take himself out of the conversation. And I think that at this point that should be enough. Not only that, let me tell you, the Prime Minister of the party has made it very clear that we're in the midst of a pandemic. We're in a national emergency trying to fight a disease. Party matters are on pause. We're not even thinking about ourselves as party officials. We are thinking only government and what we can do for the people during this COVID-19 period. So we're not going to dig too deep into that. He made his unfortunate comments, and from what I've heard from social media, I don't have social media, but from what I've heard, there were some people who were blasting him, and there were some people who were fully in support of what he said. So we can debate that, but you know what, Isani? We don't have any time to debate that. The man made his comments. He believed that his comments would have caused a distraction. He resigned so we can move on and talk about what's really important.
The question many people are asking is whether it was unethical or illegal for the journalist to record former SSB chair Doug Singh. Was it a breach of privacy? It is known from the recording that Aaron Humes had indicated to Singh that he is trying to clarify information about the COVID-19 Unemployment Relief Fund, for which the Social Security Board is charged with disbursing. Attorney Audrey Matura, a former journalist herself, says that Journalism 101 is that anything said to a reporter is on record, unless the interviewee says otherwise. She notes that Singh never once said that the conversation was off the record, but in fact offered to write the article.
To me, 101 journalism is that once you, as an officer, an official, in your official capacity, are talking or is talking to a reporter, everything you say is on record. So they can record it either audio, visual, or handwritten. In the days when I started as a journalist, we had these big recorders that we would press. But sometimes when one wasn't available, we had to write verbatim what was said. So yes, he had the right to record it. It is not a situation where Mr. Singh said, you know what, I'm going to talk to you, I'm going to be very cordial and very candid, but it's off the record. If Mr. Singh was talking about his personal love life, house life, something personal to him, then he's entitled to privacy. But if he's talking about something that is public, he as a public official then waives that privacy right. Okay? So I think that's a distinction that needs to be made clearly. It is not a privacy issue. From my reading or listening to the recording, it was clear that Mr. Singh knew he was talking to a reporter. He knew the reporter was getting something on the record. He went and said several times, make sure you do balance reporting. He even offered to write the script. So my take is that yes, he was entitled to take and record that. The profession of a journalist. Sadly, in Belize, many attempts were made to create a journalism association of some sort. Always the politics get into it, they broke up, it has never gone off. So the truth is, it's not like the legal profession where we have certain standards and ethics. There's nothing on the books. What the journalists in Belize try and comply with are international standards, which then brings me to the fact that when you are a journalist, you are allowed to do secret recording. So if I'm doing an in-depth report, I go undercover, or I see something happening and I just pull out my camera. It's the same way that you could just grab and turn on this camera in public to capture something. It's the same principle applies when you are dealing with a public persona, that you can capture what they're saying in a public capacity. Had Mr. Singh said, I'm speaking to you in a personal capacity, and I don't want you to quote me, or this is just me, Doug Singh, not the chairman, then it's different.
Attorney Audrey Matura asserts that there are no privacy laws in regards to the recording of conversations and that there was no mention of confidentiality. Humes did not include Singh's disparaging comments in his article, which was soon removed from the Breaking Belize news site. We're told it was at the request of Singh to Humes' superiors. Matura explains why there was no breach of privacy.
No, there's no law.
So what
There's
could
no law.
he be charged for?
He can't be charged with anything for doing his job. You know, it would have been different if Mr. Humes edited that and made it appear to be a message that he was not giving. Then it would have been very different. Or it would have been different if Mr. Singh had said to him, I am telling this out of confidentiality. He then becomes a confidential source. Then Mr. Humes could not use it then. It would be different if he is saying, look, I'm telling you this off the record. I don't want them to know that I said. He did none of that. There is no such law.
Up to Tuesday afternoon, more than 60,000 applications were lodged for the COVID-19 Unemployment Relief Program, and just a little over 7,000 were approved and forwarded to the Social Security Board to disperse payment. That 7,000 plus has almost tripled to 23,000 approved up to today's date, and disbursement of payment was also to start today. As we have been reporting, the Economic Oversight Committee, headed by Dr. Carla Barnett and Attorney Chris Koyi, is leading this national relief effort for persons who have lost their jobs as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Included in those applications are persons who have been unemployed for a longer period prior to the implementation of COVID-19 measures. This morning, we spoke with co-chair Chris Koyi about the status of the program.
Between yesterday and today, that number would have increased, at least by the end of today, to around 23,000, a little over 23,000 approved applicants or approved beneficiaries. That means that those approved names and particulars would be provided to the SSB for relief payments. The bank account details, if they have bank accounts, would have been provided, and then SSB thereafter would then make arrangements to pay. If they don't have bank accounts, then the prepaid cards would be what would be in line for them.
How soon would those cards be made available, Mr. Koyi?
What we are informed by Heritage Bank is they can produce 250 cards per day, roughly. There's also Holy Redeemer Credit Union that has prepaid cards that we have reached out to for their assistance as well. I don't have a specific number on their productivity, but we will be looking to them as well for prepaid cards.
Some 23,000 have been approved, which represents over 35%. While those figures grew significantly over the past few days, several have been clamoring that the help is not reaching them fast enough. Today we asked co-chair Koyi about this issue. He says he doesn't believe it is moving too slowly, but that there are several things that had to be done to get the program ready. During the verification program, there are some small details that must be filtered to ensure that the beneficiaries are those who qualify for the program. Koyi says that no priority is being placed on the recently unemployed when compared to the longer unemployed applications.
I'm not sure that I would agree that it's been moving along slowly. I mean, you can look at many different jurisdictions and see that process. I think Jamaica just launched theirs Friday. Was it Friday? They had over 71,000 applications in the first day. Their system actually crashed as well. But subsequent to that, they have seen quite a bit of applications. They are not looking to pay out for another 30 days. Our application was launched a little over a week and a half ago, and we have already started making payments. I appreciate that there is certainly a high demand, there's a high need. We have to appreciate that those applications have to be vetted, which means that they have to pass various exclusions. You have to be a Belizean for one. You have to be 18 years or older. There's any opportunity for double dipping has to be eliminated. So if you're a member of Boost program or you're a government or social security pensioner, you're not eligible. So all that screening has to be done. You have to get the database from Boost. You have to get database from government treasury. You have to get database from social security. Then in terms of recently unemployed versus long unemployed, we also have to apply parameters to make sure that people are unemployed. The reality is, of those 62, you have quite a bit of people who have applied who are still working. And I don't think it would be fair for us to be paying people who are still working. So all that screening has to be done. It's a significant task. You also have to bear in mind, applying the Social Security database, the people who became unemployed in March, Social Security database won't have that until the middle of April. The employers don't have to apply or submit their filings until April 15th, I think. So you don't get that data into Social Security until really today. So all that plays a role in how this screening process operates and how approval can be undertaken or given for eligible applicants.
Does the committee prioritizes who gets their monies first? For example, is it that persons who are recently unemployed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic get their monies before persons who have been unemployed for a long time?
No, not at all. They're recently unemployed and those who have lost their income, which may include self-employed, and there are also longer unemployed. There's no preference one above the other whatsoever. So far as going through the process of vetting, they have to go through what is verifiable based on those parameters that I briefly mentioned. For example, the longer unemployed as a parameter, if you haven't been working or haven't been employed for at least the past 3 months, January, February, March, that's the agreed parameter for determining whether you're long unemployed. If you had been employed up to the end of January and then after that you lost your job, then you would be treated as a recently unemployed. So that's in effect the gauge by which you determine if you are eligible as a recently unemployed or a longer term unemployed, provided that you pass the other exclusion.
There are no new cases of COVID-19 to report today. 18 persons have been affected and 2 have died. So far, 629 persons have been screened, 611 returned negative, and 46 are under investigation. Those are the statistics up to 3 p.m. today. Now, despite a state of emergency, there are new measures coming, and those become effective as of this Friday. The new measures include the curfew restrictions for those who are 16 years and under. Attorney General Michael Perfit was the guest on Ask the Experts webcast today and explains how this will work come Friday.
There will be a curfew for children under the age of 16. So if you're 16 and under, you will be able to be on the streets or in the public, shop, wherever, between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. After 4 p.m., if you're 16 and under, you cannot be on the streets or in the public, even if you're there with your mom and pop. So you can't say, oh, the 5 o'clock, But and then when my mom and pa, no, 4 o'clock, picnic enough for them on the street, whether you're there with your mom and pa. You are only allowed to be on the streets as a child below the age of 16 between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. So parents, guardians, whatever it is you need your children to do or whatever it is you need to do that requires the presence of your children, make sure you do it between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. starting Friday.
Coming up, Roman Catholic Bishop Wright passes away at 74. The Roman Catholic Diocese of Belize City in Belmopan, as well as devout followers and parishioners of Holy Redeemer Cathedral and the Catholic community, mourn the passing of Bishop Wright. Serving as head of the Catholic Church from 2006 to 2017, Wright joined the priesthood in June 1975 and later served as an auxiliary to Bishop Osmond Peter Martin. He was subsequently appointed bishop of the diocese in November 2006 and installed a few months later. Bishop Wright outspokenly objected to some aspects of government's same-sex orientation rights back in 2013, a position that was supported by the Council of Churches. Earlier today, News 5 spoke with Father Noel Leslie, a lifelong friend of Bishop Wright.
I first met him at Holy Redeemer School. He had gone to another school before. I think it was Miss Rock's school. And then he came over to Holy Redeemer. That's where I encountered him. And we also served as altar boys at the cathedral for several years. And after his graduation from Holy Redeemer, our friendship continued. He went on to high school, and of course our friendship continued there. And then he became a teacher at Holy Redeemer School, and again our friendship continued on there with others. And then it was during that time as a teacher in the 70s that he began to contemplate the priesthood. But before I get into that, I must mention that something tragic happened in his life in 1961 when Hurricane Hattie struck our country. He lost his mother, his two sisters, and his younger brother Norman in that hurricane. He himself saved himself in a tree, a coconut tree I believe it was, and he would tell us that story, not in detail, but he would tell us how he had to hold on for dear life. And to show you the significance of that tree, when you look at his shield, which he had to choose as a bishop, he made sure that palm tree was included in that design, because that palm tree was very significant to him. In fact, was a life-saving tree in his life.
Father Leslie, in remembering Bishop Wright, admits that the most challenging time in his leadership of the Catholic Church in Belize was when he was faced with the gender issue. Despite the position that he took and the support he received from other denominations, Wright was going up against the government of Belize. Aside from that legal battle, Bishop Wright also struggled with complications from diabetes, which slowed him down considerably from active participation in the church.
I would say one of the most challenging moments in his life was when he had to deal with the gender issue, and he had to confront that and give his opinions about that, trying to keep in line with what the church would believe and so forth. And some people see him as conservative, some would say as progressive and so forth. Well, whatever, that was a challenge for him, but he did what he felt he had to do at that particular time in the life of the country. Now, his illness, I would say his illness affected him tremendously. I think he was a bit frustrated at times. And just as how everybody asked the question, why? Why did this have to happen to me? And several times he would pose that particular question. But, I guess he just accepted that was one of the things that happened in life, and he tried to deal with it as much as he possibly could. But it did hinder his work tremendously. And I think for him, it was a frustration that he couldn't accomplish much. And that's where the question why would come in. Why did this have to happen to me at this particular time? But anyway, he weathered the storm, and in spite of having an amputation and so forth.
The church is now preparing to lay the bishop to rest during a state of emergency, which has restrictions on the movement of persons and sets a limit of 10 persons attending a funeral. Shifting to the agro-productive sector, while food producers are allowed to operate within the regulations, the poultry sector in Spanish Lookout is still feeling the hit of COVID-19. and they anticipate that it may worsen if things continue the way they are. Quality Poultry Products, one of the largest poultry producers, is reporting a drop of 50% in sales. Because of this, the hatcheries are also feeling the pinch with a massive surplus of chickens in their barns. Today, we spoke with Managing Director Raymond Bartman of the Quality Poultry Products, and he explains the situation, which he says will be felt in the processing plant in another 2 to 3 weeks.
When the pandemic came, all the barns were loaded with chickens, right? Because we were expecting a good tourist year and all of this. So obviously, we're not gonna kill all the chickens and so forth. So we have to get through the big surplus, and then and we have already decreased our orders at the hatcheries because sales dropped almost 50%, right? So now what will happen is the farmers will spend many months without any chickens because we first have to get our supply down. So the farmers, instead of raising, for example, last year they probably raised like 6 bunch of chickens per year, which means that this year they might only raise 3. Or that's so the effect they're gonna feel is actually coming later than right now. I mean, it will come in 2 weeks' time. This thing takes a little bit to kick in. Here, we will stop being busy in 3 weeks from now when all the chicken has been processed that was in the barns, and then it will slow down here, right? So our problem here at the processing plant will be 3 weeks from now, not currently yet.
One of the points raised was the matter of storage. Is that a concern for quality right now?
Well, yes, it is a concern, and again, that's what we're trying to avoid, and that's hence the reason for this big promotion and so forth. And hopefully, we will be able to work around it because once you look for storage, that's a whole other complication to try to keep. As you know, chicken is not exactly something you play with over a period of a year. You store somewhere; it's a fast-moving, perishable product, so you have to take good care of it.
In Thursday's newscast, we'll have more on COVID-19 and the impact on the Spanish Lookout productive sectors. So with a surplus on their hands, Quality Poultry Products is holding special discounts to encourage the sale of chicken because they also stand to face storage issues. Managing Director Raymond Bartman says that they are doing the buy 2, get 1 free promo, which will help to cut some losses in the industry, because as it stands, they are losing profits. They, however, want the public to have chicken, which is the most affordable source of meats on the market.
We are giving away 2 chickens and you get 1 free. And this is to help all of us who are struggling right now to get a chicken at an affordable price. And hopefully we can help all the struggling homes out there that hopefully with a very nice protein meal for a very reasonable price. Obviously, it's at a big loss to us, which like I previously said, we're just turning a blind eye currently and not worrying about the financial effects this obviously will have. We're just trying to get through it.
Are people taking advantage?
It actually went off crazy. We're actually not able to keep up because, as you know, the delivery trucks were having the retail and they're being swamped with people around the trucks. It's going much better than I had anticipated, and obviously we were underprepared, and it's super busy right now.
Is there a reason why you decided to do this promotion? Is it because you have maybe a surplus of chicken on your hands?
Yes, of course we do. That is definitely a big key factor here. As you know, that this COVID-19 came out of nowhere, so there was no preparing. And, with tourism and everything, we were running a normal schedule, like we're going to have a good tourist season. And as you know, March is a high month for tourism in the cruise ship industry especially. And so we were ready. And then there's Easter, which just passed. So obviously we were preparing for good sales during this time of the year. And then, as you know, that took a complete 180.
The special at Quality Poultry Products will be available until supplies last. On another note, last week the Quality Poultry Products quietly made a sizable donation of chickens for the frontline workers of the police, Coast Guard, BDF, and KHMH. Recent reports on the international media suggest that social distancing is an effective tool in fighting the spread of COVID-19. Locally, the practice was among the first measures imposed to keep the number of cases on the low side. But a visit at different locations today shows that it is not being enforced. Persons lining up at supermarkets, financial institutions, and at the Samuel Haynes Institute were not observing the 6-foot rule as they went about conducting transactions. Here is News 5's Isani Caetano with this report.
Person coming into physical contact with someone who has either tested positive for or is exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19, the disease transmission can be prevented, resulting in fewer deaths. This is the principle of social distancing, one of several non-pharmaceutical measures taken to stop the spread of coronavirus. It falls within the amendments to the emergency regulations. However, enforcement of social distancing remains problematic.
There is no need for panic. We don't have to crowd the supermarkets and grocery stores because there is more than a sufficiency of necessary supplies. This will continue for as long as the pandemic lasts.
Over the past 2 days, taking into consideration that it is mid-April, the streets of Belize City have been abuzz with activity, as many have come out to collect salaries, transact business, and make essential purchases. While it is necessary for these obligations to be met, the 6-foot distance between persons gathered outside of supermarkets and banks is not being adhered to. The deaths of Hubert Pipersberg and Conrad Everett should strike a chord as to the need for maintaining physical distance.
It is also a reminder, coming to us in the worst possible way, of the need for all Belizeans to treat this terrible virus with the grave seriousness it deserves. No one need doubt that such a reminder is necessary. Every day since the declaration of the state of emergency, the police have had to arrest scores of persons for breaking curfew and breaching the stay-at-home and social distancing regulations.
Scores of residents stood outside in the mid-morning heat awaiting their turn to collect relief assistance at the Samuel Haynes Institute on Mahogany Street. Notwithstanding the fact that the compound abuts the police precinct, there was little that could be done to keep the meandering lines in check.
We continue to do what we can with a view to ensure that we limit the number of persons on the street as best as we can. And I just want to, again, emphasize to our Belizean people to please abide by the rules. Stay at home, stay at home, stay at home. If you don't need to be on the streets, stay at home.
At a time when food supplies in many households have dwindled, it is the most difficult advice to give, despite the need to stem the spread of the virus. To slow down its spread in an effort to avoid overburdening the healthcare system, measures including the closing of schools and workplaces, restricting the movement of people, and cancellations of mass gatherings are in effect, but the police department continues to grapple with social distancing. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Caetano.
After the break, stricter measures to be enforced to put a lid on the number of COVID-19 cases. At the top of the newscast, you heard about the new curfew for those under the age of 16, which will come into effect on Friday. But that's only a part of the new measures that will be implemented. Attorney General Michael Parafit announced during today's Ask the Experts webcast that medical doctors in the private sector will also be restricted. The doctors, he explains, will not be allowed to move between public and private institutions for work. Here's how he explains the controversial decision that is likely to limit the availability of specialized care at the public hospitals.
There will be an amendment to deal with doctors. We had an incident with a private healthcare facility and a public healthcare facility. And we believe that there has arisen some conflicts that were there before, but some conflicts that must be addressed during this emergency period because we're dealing with a deadly disease. There will be a restriction on doctors. You either work for a private facility or you work for a public facility. There can be no double dipping per se. So if you're a doctor and you work in a private health clinic and you want to work there, then you will not be able to work at a public hospital or clinic, and you will have no authority at that public hospital or clinic. If you're working for the government and the people of Belize, you are not allowed to work in a private health facility. At least that will be the case for the duration of the emergency. We'll be putting that in the law. It's not the law yet, but it will be the law by Friday.
Also starting Friday, Michael Parafit says that the utility companies will be allowed to operate their cashier service only for persons to pay bills. In addition to that, opening hours for financial institutions will be adjusted, meaning that they will be closed to the public earlier in the day. Here's how it will work.
Currently, as we speak, BTL, WASA, I like say WASA, BWS, you all like me or say WASA, BWS, BTL, BL, SpeedNet, their storefronts have been closed. The issue is you have people who are anxious to pay their bills. They want to pay their utility bills, and not everybody has the ability to do it online. Not everybody has the ability to go to a different place of business to pay for another utility because it's too crowded sometimes. So beginning like Friday, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., BTL, BEL, BWS, SpeedNet, these places will be opening up their storefronts so people can pay their bills only. So, beginning Friday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., you can go to the utility companies just to pay your bills. So only the cashier are open. You now be open for business, customer service, and like you have to do that on the phone. But just to pay your bills, so people can be on time with their bills and no computer glitch would cut out your water, your light, or your phone. You'll be able to physically go there from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. to pay your bills. Currently, as the law stands, the banks are open, and banks and financial institutions are open from 8 to 12. But beginning like Friday, and I guess it will be like next week, so for the banks primarily, the banks will now be opened from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's not the law now, but that will be the law around Friday.
The Attorney General also outlined the list of businesses that are allowed to operate during different schedules. As you'll recall, food mills, sugar, citrus, and port operations, as well as utilities, are allowed to operate 24 hours. But employees of these sectors are not allowed to be in the public during curfew hours. Here's a list of the sectors and services that are allowed to operate from Monday to Saturday.
From 5 to 7. Fuel stations, fuel depots, LPG suppliers, LPS depots, and LPG distributors. Gas station, butane, 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. agro-processors, food and carbonated and other beverage manufacturers. These are allowed to open 5 to 7 p.m. However, only the agro-processors and food manufacturers shall be allowed to operate for a period of 14 days from the commencement of these regulations, which was last week. Agricultural and aquaculture farms, shrimp farms, tilapia farms, different types of agricultural farms. Fishers. Now, when we say fishers, we mean not sport fishing. We mean people who are fishermen, who fish for a living. Those are the people who are allowed to operate between 5 a.m. and 7 p.m. Waste disposal and sanitation companies, 5 to 7. Public transportation providers, 5 to 7. But remember, no public transportation is allowed to operate for the next 14 days, except for taxis. But you can't operate from a taxi stand, 5 to 4 p.m. Bakeries, tortilla factories. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. Markets with a type of agricultural produce, fish and meat, from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Pharmacies, hotels and villas, but remember, these people are only allowed to open to maintain the place primarily. Storefront outlets, we had said originally from 8 to 7, and they were supposed to be closed for the next 14 days. However, as I said earlier, coming this Friday, they will be open from 8 to 4, so you could pay your bills only. Okay. Service of takeout or drive-through facility only at restaurants, saloons, diners, and other similar establishments. Provided takeout, drive-through, then in restaurants, locked down till April 30th. You cannot drive through to the restaurant. You cannot go to the restaurant and take out food. However, you notice what is missing from there, delivery. The restaurants can operate, cook the food, and deliver it to people. From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., this of course is the most popular one, convenience stores, food stores, supermarkets, meat shop. So shop open the morning 8, close 4. Butchers, distributors, and people who make soft drink and stuff, 8 to 4. Provided that distributors and factories of carbonated, in other words then, the law is these are open from 8 to 4, but only for them make water.
Mechanics and garages are closed to the general public unless providing services to essential sectors. When it comes to Sunday, the restrictions are tighter. As was announced over the weekend, about 90% of the country goes into lockdown on Sundays. Most businesses are closed to the public, including supermarkets. If you're not too clear on which services remain operational on Sundays during non-curfew hours, today the Attorney General outlined those essential services that continue to operate and cautions the public that stricter measures could be implemented if the spread of the virus continues. Those measures so strict that Monday to Saturday could start seeing the Sunday restrictions.
The only people who are allowed to move and open are the essential services people mentioned in Schedule 1. What are Schedule 1? Per Sunday, if you don't work for the Ministry of National Security, if you don't work for Border Management and Immigration, Customs, if you're not a cabinet member or a member of the National Assembly, if you don't work in the medical field, if you don't work for private security, if you don't work for public use of water or a farmer, if you're not a member of the media, Port Authority, Governor General, National Fire Service, BEL, BWSL, Telemedia, SpeedNet. If you don't work for any of those 19 things that I just mentioned, you can't be on the street on a Sunday. In other words then, on a Sunday, everything was closed except the 19 things where I just mentioned. And it sound like that, but I know that restaurant, convenience stores, food stores, grocery markets, everything closed for Sunday. And if you don't work for national security, customs, cabinet, hospital, security, BTL, BEL, BWSL, port, governor general, media, you are not even allowed to be on the street on a Sunday. On a Sunday, everything locked down except the essential services mentioned that I just mentioned. If more people start to contract this disease, the regulations will get rougher than they are now because the government has to take steps to preserve life. So if we don't tighten up and more people contract this disease, then indeed every day will be like Sunday. Because then the regulations that operate to Sunday, that operate on Sunday, will operate for every day. So everything will lock down absolutely, completely. And then we'll have to come up with ways for people to get their food and stuff in their homes. We're trying to prevent that.
The 24-hour businesses that continue to operate on a Sunday are the mills, oil production, sugar, citrus, and public utilities, and independent energy producers, as well as port operations. When we come back, we head south to see how residents are faring off under the state of emergency.
With over one
Economic hardship during the coronavirus crisis is affecting virtually all Belizeans as the unemployment lines continue to grow. As of this afternoon, as many as 60,000 persons have filed for relief. In Dangriga today, customers became irate when they could not access funds that were wired via MoneyGram from the United States. While one resident maintains that he's not relying on government for financial aid, he complained of not being able to access the services provided by the cash transfer company. Our colleague Harry Arzu has the following report from the South.
Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, it is clear that residents of Dangriga, as well as residents from surrounding communities, are in dire need, especially when it comes to food. Many residents who are not working at this time are depending on government agencies, community-based organizations, and relatives living abroad for relief. Today it was a chaotic situation in the initial stage at a MoneyGram located on Ramos Road, where a number of residents were waiting for money sent from abroad. It is clear that while waiting in line, social or physical distancing was not being practiced. We spoke with one of them who was in line.
For last week, I don't eat. My people send a little money for me for last week.
Could you tell me your name?
My name is Lyrical King, Edley Martinez, but Lyrical King is really my AKA, I also known as. But the thing is that I've got a relationship with my wife who lives in the States. And then now and again I get my little thing from there, but weekly.
What you call little thing?
Little thing, the little financial assistance because no government give me nothing. But I am an artist, and I'm a guitarist, and I go around and resort and do my personal thing. I don't rely on the government to get nothing at no point in time. However, at this time, because when I'm getting my personal thing, which is the little money that I'm getting from abroad, it's arduous. It means that it's so hard for me to get my personal money. And from last week, I got 3 dogs, I got myself, and I haven't eaten nothing from last week apart from the little thing that I've been given. And I don't like to be what we call a person who does beg, a beggar, and be a burden to no one. Because I've got my personal, I got my big house in Jartong, and I'm well too. But I'm from the village too.
What place is this?
Say again?
What place you trying to get money from?
MoneyGram, look at MoneyGram, I heard that because of cheap service. Again, there's little rumors that they say they speak to the girl pour water on her, but that shouldn't be the way. Let business run as normal because people are here, we poor, we want our money because money is what will drive the thing. We don't want $150 2 weeks from the government. That's why we have external people who are injecting money to us, and the government should be appreciative of that and cooperate with us on that.
What's your problem here?
My problem is that I can't get my money from last week.
Why?
Because of the problem, MoneyGram don't open. They don't want to open to extend the services to the people there who are in need, especially at this time when the COVID disease is so is at a rampant stage. So at this point in time, I would appeal to the government, especially Mr. Dean Barr, to arrest these people to come to the financial institutions who are apart from what is jurisdiction I would take. This is the country. He should bring them in, so that they could send money allotted to them from abroad. Because this money they're begging, this money that's been sent to them, and they've been sent to them. So that is my appeal here, to help the people as well as myself. And I can't go back to Jartong without gas. And I live 20, 30 miles from the town. And I have to go up and down. And if the police are there to protect me, because they lock down.
In Punta Gorda this morning, residents faced a similar dilemma when they showed up at a local Western Union branch at 8:30, and the proprietor did not open on the scheduled time. They too were incensed about being unable to access monies sent to them from abroad and called for police intervention. Here's what our friends from PGTV shared with us earlier today.
It's at 8:30, right? And then he can't open yet.
This man they play with people, my brother. Put this man for the media, this man don't want to give people. This man they use their own discussion who forget money, how much you forget. PG people have to stand up for their right. This man they play with people, brother. So before this thing get out of hand, we don't call police so much time. Police never want to deal with this man. This man they use their own discretion. If the people don't stand up and talk for their right, then I get nothing. So what time is it? What's it? You know say, you know put a sign saying open today? What's the sign? What's it? Here 30, 12 noon.
Coming up after the break, Belize Healthcare Partners has now reopened. We revisit the private healthcare facility where a now deceased COVID-19 patient was treated.
A port with a global perspective.
Belize Healthcare Partners Limited admitted and treated a patient who has now died from COVID-19. As you know by now, Conrad Everett was first hospitalized there and tested negative for the virus, and upon transfer to the KHMH, he tested positive. Of note is that at both facilities, persons who came in contact with him have tested negative as well. Healthcare Partners has since been decontaminated and has remained open. The private institution remains ready to treat persons who are affected with the classic symptoms of COVID-19. News 5's Dwayne Moody has the following report.
Back in action, Belize Healthcare Partners Limited is up and running today, reopening its doors and offering medical services to its clients and the general public after a COVID-19 scare at the private health institution. Patient 10, Conrad Everett, who later died as a result of the virus, had been admitted for some time at the facility, treated for community-acquired pneumonia. Everett had initially tested negative for the virus, even though the symptoms he exhibited were similar to that of COVID-19. It wasn't until days later that a retest proved positive at the KHMH, where he had been transferred.
He was treated as a patient with acute febrile illness, and that includes a range of different pathologies that can include COVID-19. So the test was requested from the beginning. He was treated with the range of medications that would normally be used for COVID-19 patients. So he was covered for that. It's unfortunate that we have 2 deaths already in the country. I think that helps to put things in perspective, and that we have to be on our guard at all time. We are in a pandemic, and everybody has to take this seriously. Unfortunately, we had what appears to have been a false negative result for that patient, and that puts us at a disadvantage. It's a disadvantage that all providers have to be aware of. And as such, the other message is this, that it's difficult to depend on one lab to do coverage for the entire country. The bottlenecks that creates, and the loss of time insofar as making accurate and timely diagnosis becomes an issue.
The incident placed medical and civilian staff at the BHPL at risk of exposure, despite exercising proper protocols in administering care at the facility. An initial test of the staff members who came in contact with Everett have returned negative.
The fact that none of our personnel have tested positive so far is, to some extent, a vindication of the steps that we have taken to try and protect staff and our clients. God willing, the remaining tests or the follow-up tests will also be negative, and we have to continue doing the things that are necessary. Using the masks, as you have seen, doing the hand washing, maintaining social distancing. Those efforts have to be redoubled. It's a new normal, and everybody has to be on board with those efforts.
The private hospital temporarily closed its doors to clients as the entire structure was decontaminated.
We have done a triple decontamination. That means that the facility is fully clean now. Our isolation area, again, is fully functional. And, it proved fit for purpose. We were able to do all our swabbing within that area, and I think that I'm certain that we are ready to see patients safely. This morning already we've had people using our lab, using our pharmacy, and using our consultation clinic. So the public can be fully confident that the hospital is safe for use. We have always had a rigorous protocol in terms of cleansing and testing our facilities, be it the rooms where the patients remain hospitalized, the emergency area, operating theater, the outpatient clinic. These are swabbed on a regular basis for all sorts of germs, well, that again is something that we are accustomed to, and well, thankfully, because we have that culture and attitude of doing those things, it has made it easy for us to get this place fit for use once again.
For weeks now, Belize Healthcare Partners Limited has identified and properly equipped an isolation unit for COVID-19 patients apart from the main structure. Dwayne Moody for News 5.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, please remember to wash your hands, keep your social distance, stay home, and stay safe. Good night.